Hi, this is Privateer Station, and today we bring you day 262 of Russian invasion into Ukraine. Apologies for the quality of sound, it is done en route, so it was either that or no recording at all. As always, with Mark Feygin, Russian opposition politician, and Olexiy Arestovych, advisor to the Office of the President of Ukraine, Lieutenant Colonel. Without further ado, enjoy. Dear friends, glad to see you all on Feigin Live. It is Saturday, November 12th. Time is 2 minutes past 10 in Kiev and 2 minutes past 11 in Moscow. And we're starting the usual stream with Olexiy Arestovich. Good evening. Day 262 already. Yep, middle of November, a lot of time has passed. We'll discuss all that. We have about 100,000 watching us live, about 20 something click the like button. This is definitely on the lower numbers, so please continue sharing that. Invite those people who need to see that. If you have friends who were mobilized or about to be, send that stream to them. Make sure to do that. And of course, subscribe to Feigin Live, to Olexiy Arestovich, and if you are listening or watching that in English, subscribe to the Privateer Station as well. All right, let's continue our discussion that we started yesterday. Again, Kherson is topic number one. We still have on the right bank of Kherson some areas that have not been reached by our military. Those white spots. Yes, there are some villages. There are some villages and settlements that we haven't reached yet. Sometimes we find Russian troops there. There was a video today of a column with a couple trucks, several, 3 or 4 pieces of armor. We destroyed the front one, everybody else waved the white flag and surrendered. So we're not expecting it to be in thousands, but there are definitely going to be some lost. And there is a notable amount of troops running around in civilian clothes. There were also some people crossing from Novaya Kakhovka, mostly on small craft, some even swam. We understand that definitely is not going to be in thousands, the prisoners that we catch there. Speaking of equipment, we found over 50 trucks, about 5 air defense systems, a helicopter. I'm giving you approximate numbers. Over 10 artillery systems, a lot of small arms, rifles, grenade launchers, mines. So, kind of so-so. So wait, did they just drop it? Did they leave it? Did they not have enough time to transport it? Yeah, they just left it, they dropped it. What about the landmines? Oh, everything is landmined. That's why we're so slow going through. Everything is covered with mines, all roads. I need to remind citizens that if you are in a new place, and if in some abandoned village, abandoned house, you hear meowing of cat in a wardrobe or in a house, do not rush to open it, because that'll be likely the last thing you do in this life. This is a trap with the animal. Does it have like an electronic sound? No, they take the real cat and they put the cat in there as a attractant. You hear the sound, you come, you open, and boom. So there's a ton of mines. Not a single move into the unknown territory without engineering troops, without sappers. Let them first go, check the area. Don't go pick any arms. If you see anything bright on the ground, any box, don't even try without specialist. Any doors, if you need to open, if you have to open them, tie the rope to it. Make sure there is some distance between you and them. lie on the ground, cover your head, and then pull the rope. That's if you're in the unknown place. If you're in your own village, probably you don't have to do that if you've been monitoring it all along and you know there are no mines. Basically what they're doing, they're pulling your basic instincts. The animal getting tortured, right? The animal needs liberation, and that's where the surprise will be waiting for you. Remember, two algorithms. One is smoke, another is drum. Smoke is when there's usually a threat of fire or something, not in the current condition likely, but drum, yes, that's a sound that attracts you. Ukrainian anthem started playing all of a sudden from an empty house. Child cry, dog barking. Be very, very careful. Most likely, many of them are there to make sure you get blown up. So, invite professionals, get the minesweeping team. Even for military, it's difficult now to move on the asphalt roads because very often they would make holes in the road and they would place them flush with the surface at a high speed at dark, rain, fog, night conditions. You won't notice it. And where the small vehicle, a sedan, will pass, tank mine will blow up the tank. If you follow that small vehicle, it'll go fine. Through that trap, tank or armored personnel carrier will be blown to pieces. According to some data, we still had several thousand Russian troops on that bank, somewhere between Sadavoy to Urgunki. That's where they were crossing the river. And we cannot come too close. Because we couldn't reach them with the field artillery and we couldn't stop their crossing, and everything else, all the other movement was pretty slow. Alright, so upon crossing to the left bank, are they shelling the previously occupied territory? No, there are no mass shootings. There have been some individual shots. They even wounded, I think, several civilians, but there is no systemic artillery fire. Now, Kakhovsky Dam. We heard that the automobile bridge was blown up. So the pontoon bridge was blown up and the road bridge is also destroyed. Those two flights that were almost cut, like with a knife, what happened? As I said, we hit it with HIMARS when the column was going through. And it probably was a car with ammo, or we somehow detonated the other explosives that they planted, or reportedly planted. So it was not them. If they did that somehow coincided with the column going over it. So I think it's still us. You know, in military circumstances, sometimes in war times, flow very weirdly. You can notice very interesting things happening once in a while. So for them, it's pretty logical to blow up the bridge, right? Yes, but their troops were still leaving, and they were actually on the bridge. And when the bridge blew up, they had at least 10,000 on the right bank, so it's unlikely that they did it. And the blow-up of that bridge actually caused a lot of them to expedite their withdrawal, so I don't think it's exactly them who did this. And you see weird things, weird shit at times of war. Once I've even seen two tracing bullets collide in midair. From the statistics standpoint, it's an impossible event, or improbable event. The probability is super, super rare mathematically, but I've actually witnessed that. All right. So the next question. All right. that torture with questions on my behalf. Oh yeah, you can torture me away, that's fine. We're just trying to figure out the details of a lot of questions. And there is an opinion and point of view that this is the beginning of long processes. This is not just a military issue. This is probably a political, that they're going to start leaving Ukraine. We have two elements we're tracking. That first, we are expecting them to use their missiles on our infrastructure. We already have warnings, they're past due. And the second question is if Iranian weapons will be used. It appears that, and actually media rephrased our yesterday's conversation and said that Arestovych said Iran is not supplying arms, is not supplying missiles to Russia. This is not so. We tried to tell you that they are upset. They're upset at how Russia is using their munitions because they did not want their name to be used, to be tarred in such a use of these weapons. They did not want their name to be smack center in these crimes that regime is doing here in Ukraine, that Putin's regime is doing while shelling civilian targets. So I think they have certain issues related to that. Today, our military intelligence, the speaker Skibitsky said, that Russia has made another purchase of UAVs, and then they also got a purchase order for ballistic missiles. No, for the new UAVs with a longer range, 700 to 300 miles. So there are two signs. Will they be escalating the use of Iranian weapons or not? Will they be hitting civilian targets with that or not? And you saw Patrushev was actually flying there, trying to talk to them, and then Putin talked to apparently the leader of Iran. So that can be construed as Russia is trying to convince Iran to actually deliver arms. According to some data, they actually made a purchase of missiles back in September. But Iran maybe is slow-walking delivery, at least maybe till G20 in Indonesia, till that is done. At least we see right now that there are no hits on the infrastructure for quite a bit. We were expecting them to be targeting it daily or maybe weekly. Should have been last Monday, but it's Saturday already and we still don't see it. So if they don't, then they try to de-escalate. If they continue shelling soon, then they're definitely escalating. I do not believe, though, that there'll be a pause. I think they'll continue shooting and they'll using Iranian equipment. I think all the stupid things will have to be done because we're not fighting a smart enemy here. All right, we're still discussing, right? We still got to bring these questions up. I think this is somewhat adjacent, maybe directly, maybe not, to the question that I get. Messages as if Ukraine actually voted again. They sent me a document here. There was some vote in United Nations and Ukraine again joined that resolution against Israel or the occupation of territory or something. So once again, as I considered before, I think United Nations is a stamp collecting society. But I have to ask why after the first scandal it was not addressed. The document is A/S.4/77.L 12 Rev.1. So there is an official United Nations document, something dedicated to occupied Palestinian territories. Do you think there is another mistake, another idiocy, a fuck up from your politicians? Mark, with all respect that I have to our Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they're patriots, they're professionals of high level, high class. That same Kislitsa, our ambassador in the United Nations, how he works with the Russian representatives there, he needs honor. He needs to be commended on that. But our position on voting against Israel, that is still beyond my comprehension. We are voting for the second time together with Iran and Russia. What would preclude them from voting? Just don't vote. So they're talking in the backstage that we're just maintaining certain positions on the politics, and that's important for us. But it doesn't work like that. Yeah, it's an old Soviet inertia, I think. When Ukraine was leaving Soviet Union, in order for it to be recognized, it is not an automatic process, to say the least. It's a pretty difficult political fight. And Ukraine was trying to be somewhat of a stable country, because when you're fresh new and you start making odd decisions, that may cause extra ripples that you don't want to, unless that's your goal. So one of the opinions that is being discussed is that Kislitsa just continues to press that button in the old format because he hasn't got new orders, new directives. Because if you read Sun Tzu, a proper general is the one who managed to create allies. And actually, Israel in this case was helping us from the very beginning. Even if they didn't give us military systems, they were providing moral support, they were providing refugee support. And that's what I'm saying, yeah, what if you just don't vote? And now, right, after these two votes by Ukraine, people are taking down their avatars that they had for several months. It doesn't affect things globally, but it's the same thing. This document doesn't affect things globally, right? Why are we voting for it? It's almost like if I tell you, Mark, I will not do any streams with you. Or no, I'll do streams with you, but I'll consider you to be the scumbag, the biggest scumbag. Yeah, it'll not matter, but it'll be painful a little bit. Yeah, as they say in certain circles, don't show it on yourself. And yeah, this voting may change some things, right? For example, with Iran, there was an issue about a couple of weeks ago. They were even talking about maybe Saudi Arabia trying to think about hitting Iran. Biden was commenting that there was some serious rhetoric about Iran that their factories may get hit. Oh, by the way, Netanyahu actually is in power in Israel now. Netanyahu is a hawk. He rather likes to hit their enemies, and under certain conditions, he can give an order to target Iranian factories. And now Iran can also try to project that internal crisis that they have now into outwards, and then there'll be a coalition of Israel, United States, and others having to quell Iran. So then we may have a situation where Israel, Americans, and Saudi Arabia are shooting up Iranian factories, the ones that will be or are manufacturing UAVs and missiles that Russians will use in Ukraine, and will continue voting against Israel in the United Nations. This is a stupid position, even if it's a legacy or inertia. And by the way, Iran is already hitting us. Israel is an enemy of Iran. So, enemy of my enemy is, right, my enemy. I don't like speaking the obvious truths. As part of my training from childhood, that Unless your sentence has extra added value, it should not be voiced. But sometimes, apparently, we have to. I do not understand, or actually, no. I refuse to understand our anti-Israel voting in the United Nations. All right, we'll see. There is still some time. We'll observe where the dynamic will go from here. We'll have 346,000 watching us live. Over 100,000 click the like button. Thank you, dear friends. Thank you for doing it. It is important for us that you share that stream and make sure that others who need to see it, they do see it. Head of Ukrainian Foreign Affairs Dmytro Kuleba on the summit of the countries of Southeast Asia made a statement that he will consider the offer to meet with Sergei Lavrov if he gets such a communication. I think it's the same situation around the summit G20 that negotiation doors should never be closed. Mark, I don't think that's too important. We've been negotiating with them for a long time. And what happened? Nothing. I also think it won't lead to anything. In the fact of the meeting itself, there is nothing dangerous, and it's diplomatic duty to work and to talk and to meet. Just like a soldier has to be in the war front shooting at the enemy, diplomat needs to be talking. And Dmytro is a high-level professional, so if he needs to meet with Lavrov, he will meet with Lavrov. The meeting itself doesn't mean much. I think it's the feeling of being an effect that drives people to discuss that. Because if, imagine Kuleba meets Lavrov, what Lavrov will hypnotize him or make him sign something. You know, the West or some other parts, they do want a process. They don't want results, they want processes to be going. I'm also talking about Ukrainian side, that some people here do not want to even meet with them. Who cares? We've been talking to them early in spring, we've been talking to them later in spring, and nothing changed, so it's not a big deal. All right, we haven't talked about the other parts of the front. It's a pretty complex situation in Ugledar right now. Let's bring the map up. There is a fight going over Pavlovka. From Marinka on the eastern side, they're trying to move. It's tactical, nothing serious. For them, it's direct heavy fights. It's a hellish work of infantry on that front. And it's not, when I say that in this way, I'm just trying to impress that it doesn't, when I say it's tactical, it doesn't affect the strategic situation, but the tactical fights themselves, they are not light, they're pretty heavy. It's just that Russia cannot affect strategic situation with the fights on that front. Now let's go up north to Bakhmut. They're trying to attack it again, nothing changed, they do it daily. Same with Snegurovka and also a lonely arrow near Svatova up north. They're trying to move in our direction, we're kicking them back, not giving them an inch of our land. Even though on Donbass it's pretty difficult. It is hell, yes. They do have a bit more artillery there. They have a lot of mobilized troops. They have Wagner troops there. And we withdrew a lot of troops for Kherson, whatever free reserves, even if we can call them free. But we basically scrapped reserves from many other parts of the front to use Kherson, to use them in Kherson. So you think you'll now move them back to other places? Yeah, likely. Okay, 360,000 watching us. I remind you to subscribe to Feygin Live. Just an hour ago, I had a different stream with Sergei Pugachev, a very peculiar stream in context of Putin. Was he really a friend of Putin? Yeah, yeah. He was a very close person to him. In 2000s, he was very close. And he was attacked a lot in those times. He well deservedly at that time. He was an advisor to Putin. He was the head of one of the banks. And I think it's interesting. It's important for the analysis. I think the conclusion out of it is that Putin loves his life a little too much, so likely there will not be any nuclear war that's not about him. And attempts to present him as a man who wants to sacrifice himself to burn the whole country or the whole earth, this is misleading. This is misunderstanding of his psychology. The answer is that the rough answer that Europe and states gave him, if you try to mess with nukes, we'll chop one of your balls off, that was a strong enough message to him. He could have threatened nuclear war until he got told what does it mean for him. Exactly, that's what happened. You can play that as long as people do not bring you up and tell you how it will end, if you do. All right, another question about our friend. Again, I'm romanticizing that relationship. Said that by January, you guys will be at Crimea. He actually was pretty adamant that you will take Kherson in a few days, and we can predict that maybe, and he does think that you may have Mariupol back before January. I was more skeptical. I thought Russian troops would be resisting more. They left, but yeah, it's not about Hodges and Budanov prognosticating things. Prognosis a week here, a month there. It depends upon the process you're describing. Even 1 week depends upon the size of the scale of events you're talking about. So talk about Mariupol. Do you think you'll have Mariupol soon? Hodges is a general. He's a high-level professional. He has a military view on the world, and he thinks that logically the next hit on the southern front will be to interrupt all communication in the south. And then very likely it'll be Volnovakha and Mariupol. And if we do that, we cut also automobile road. That'll be basically all the way down to the gates to Crimea. That will cut them. And then Donetsk and Lugansk will be the only regions with active fighting. But if Ukraine troops from all over the front will move to Lugansk and Donetsk, then it'll be a little too tight for all the troops that will get there, in good sense for us. So we may lead to pretty good results rather rapidly. But again, another thing to consider, our shipments of armor, ammo, more supplies from our allies, they're not matching our intentions. They're going steadily, but we need to calculate how long it will take for us to aggregate a certain amount. And I think that's what he did. He just calculated that and said, roughly, it'll take you about a month and a half. But we, of course, understand that we can use some operative spontaneity in the different parts of the front and affect it. Otherwise, we never say, right, we cannot say this is how it will be. It depends. It could be a mix of different offensives. Could be a mix of different maneuvers. Who knows us? Yeah, we've seen those. Russian army is retreating for the 5th time in this war. And it hasn't come back yet, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. Let's get back to news about negotiations. In the United States, they were hoping that there'll be negotiations happening in the future, but they still think that it'll be up to Vladimir Zelensky to define terms and time of negotiations. As Corriere della Sera printed, Juliana Smith's statement that Moscow could finish war tomorrow if they wanted to. And our President Joe Biden agrees that this war will be finished at negotiation table, but it's up to Zelensky to figure out when, how, and the terms. That's how she stated that. to follow her Erdogan, who is also going to be present at G20 summit. He said that he's looking forward to talk to Zelensky at G20 to see about his position, if it changed or what the terms are, negotiations with Moscow. Do you think that reflects the situation accurately? Of course, if we do take the conditions that Zelensky stated up front, reparations, complete withdrawal, giving up the military criminals, but you think that atmosphere of negotiations is in the air. Putin is getting another offer that unless he's an idiot, he needs to use. Maybe he will, but we know that he probably won't. You think he's a full idiot? I don't think he's an idiot. I think he's a very rational creature. It's just he's living in a very skewed world. And the world that he sees causes him to make these illogical decisions. But in the skewed world, as every insane person, they are very logical. He is very logical. Do you know that insane people, very often, if you look deeper into why they're making these decisions, they are actually very precisely logical in their skewed vision of reality. So now they're actually given a chance to continue communicating with civilized people. And finally, they got an option to move the first fertilizers out. See, the world is showing them, if you're constructive, we're letting you continue with international sales. That's the rules of the West. That's how the whole West is playing that. If you're constructive, if you're logical, we'll make a step forward and see what happens and see how you behave. Something like that. If it's constructive, we'll meet it with constructive steps. The main thing, Macron and the United States confirmed that. Not a single Russian soldier needs to be left on the Ukrainian territory. Everything is very, very simple. I wanted to discuss another thing, and all our viewers. I have a question. Why is the war continuing? There's only one reason for it to continue. It may be over suddenly in 15 minutes because Putin doesn't give an order to withdraw, doesn't give an order to stop it. That's the only reason why this war is continuing. And if all of a sudden he watches our show and decides to repent and calls Surovikin and tells, hey, stop war, and that will be the end of it. And then they can call to Erdogan and say, we are finishing in 10 days, there'll be no troops. That'll be the end of it. They would save tens of thousands of Russian lives. Russian army would still have some sort of battle readiness, and it can be used as an instrument of foreign politics. Very beaten up, but at least there are no revolts of family members. Putin is still in power. Economy hasn't completely collapsed. He is still a leader. Suddenly he is somewhat a reasonable figure again, and Europe will consider him. But I don't think it'll happen like this, Olexiy. Yeah, I know, chances are slim, but I'm just showing to our viewers that the destiny of Russian citizens and their troops is in hands of one maniac who can actually end everything in 15 minutes if he wanted to. Alas, alas. Let's see how he behaves. That's another discussion matter. What about Belarus? They blamed Ukraine in putting landmines along the border. When I read this piece of news, I was wondering, why are you accusing Ukraine? This is not your territory, they're putting landmines. You know, the second question is like, oh, what happened? I was always saying they're fucktards over in Belarus. I'm not meaning people, but I'm meaning their current leadership and their Minister of Defense. Did you hear what he said? Why are you putting landmines? We have 7 times more infantrymen, then you have mines. Is he going to break your landmine fields with his troops? It's not even about that. Landmines is a defensive weapon. Why are they reacting to that? Right? Right. I don't know. Maybe they're being pushed from behind to go into the landmines. But you have to face it. You have to say, we want to escalate. We want to cross the border. Right. What happened? There'll be time. And I think that regime will rest. Do you think, in your opinion, there is anything to worry about? That there are any signs that they're still going to cross and to realize that plan that they've been concocting together with Putin? Russia, yes, they are trying to accumulate their troops over there, but it may take them a long time, I think. It depends also from the fork in the road. Where do they go? Throw them to Donetsk, the ones that they withdrew from Kherson, or throw them to Belarus? If they throw them to Belarus, that means they will be offending, right? No, I think they'll just move them to Lugansk and Donetsk. Because imagine if damned Ukrainians with Western allies take back all of the lands they've conquered in Donetsk and Lugansk. Because Kherson was a somewhat freshly acquired piece of land. Those Russian staples. So, in your opinion, Belarus, especially after left the right bank of Dnieper, they did not go in March when they had all chances of taking Kiev and taking that milestone. Which fool, when Putin baffled that early adventure, which fool would decide to go and help him? Right, they still need to aggregate troops, even if these idiots decide to. They need more than 10,000 that they have right there. And do you think 10,000 is enough? It's the right number? No, it's probably way less than they need. Half of them is service, deeper engineering and logistics people, radio location, air support, servicemen. So these are not people who will be going into offensive. Quoting representatives of our general command, they do not have enough. That group over there cannot really threaten us. So what if they take a different logic? What if they decide to cut Volyn region? Mark, do you know what Volyn is? This is the area where they mine amber. Our military people are afraid to go there without support. They're just waiting for all of them, because they do need working hands on the pumps. Are these locals like that? Rough men like this? Oh yeah, they always look for additional slave labor. You're scaring us a little bit. What are these people? Russian servicemen have a unique chance of becoming builders of some amber pyramids. These sound like some serious people. They're like Wild West or Texas or something. They're like a country within a country. You know, in Europe there are places where police doesn't even go. Yeah, back in 20, 30 years ago, Harlem was like that. Our police and National Guard try not to go there. If they do, they usually go en masse, like 2,000 or 3,000 to arrest 2 people. So I hope these mobilized IT guys from Moscow and Petersburg will hear you. If you run into our amber diggers, you'll wish you'd have run into our military. And frankly, if any of our viewers are from that area, perhaps we don't know something. Why waste Ukrainian military forces? You guys can probably deal with that threat yourself. Oh, these are great people, Mark. They don't really need weapons. They already have them. If Russian troops anger them, we'll probably be able to stop them only somewhere near Helsinki. And only after extensive explanations that Helsinki is actually our ally, so we shouldn't be touching them. Okay, that's pretty cheering news, especially for those who might be among those mobilized who might be sent over that way. That adds a whole new color to the painting. Let me sum it up. I think I've talked about that before, but I'll talk about it again. The current couple months will be very colorful. There'll be a lot of good news. A lot, yes. Unexpected and good news, because when we were reading Yermak, he always puts a lot of emojis and smiles. It's pretty hard to find. Well, everybody is guessing. They're playing the guessing game, looking at his tweets. I failed to understand anything what he was saying. Me neither, but boys and girls from like 11th grade and TikTok, they guess it pretty fast. These are amazing generation who can understand the emoji message. I was trying to riddle one, and then after 15 minutes of failure, I just dumped it. And people are understanding him. They actually experience emotions and guess it right, and then talk between each other. We're just too old for that. Yeah, these codes are flying by us. Flying above us. Okay, 41-minute live. 430 something thousand watching us, and it's Saturday. You know, it's good that so many people are with us. By the way, I had a good meeting yesterday with one guy, very respectable gentleman who's 10 years old. His name is Maxim, and I promised to send him a big hello in today's stream to Maxim and his sister Anya. All right, fulfilled that. Okay, tomorrow we're skipping it, right? Olexiy has other streams. And on Monday we're here the usual time. Right, Olexiy? Right. Okay. Next week we actually accumulated enough money from our online stores. We'll continue our campaign of supporting families and people and kids. If you know especially families with young ones, let us know. We'll try to help them. We're trying to help soldiers too and the wounded, but we usually have other orgs. But if a young kid is left alone, an orphan without parents or without family, please let us know. They do need help. Okay. Thank you, Olexiy. Thank you, dear viewers, for being with us. Do not forget to share links, dear viewers, and do not forget to subscribe to Feigin Live, to Olexiy Arestovich, and to the Privateer Station. And we'll see you on Monday at 10 p.m. Thank you.